Welcome back, everybody, to Bar Overseas. It is episode 9. I'm excited because my goal is to publish 10 episodes before I go back to Malaysia. I'm going back to Malaysia in September, and I have 2 episodes left. It's super doable, super achievable. Yeah, yeah. Thanks so much. Yeah, it's actually quite achievable. Like I'm quite not worried about achieving my goal actually. But today today I really want to bring in a couple of guests who actually come from Kuching like myself. And to be fair, we were all at one point in our lives very close by in terms of our school location. Yeah. so so yeah, for a bit of context, I went to a school called Sentrisa in Kuching. So if you're from Sarawak, I think you know what Sentrisa is. And our guest today came from those schools also, in Kuching there's like a couple of famous schools, Saint Teresa, Saint Joseph, Saint Thomas, Saint Mary. So we are from those clusters, of schools.
Yes.
So yes, that's right. And it's and I thought they were doing like really exciting stuff in London, right? And I was not gonna take that what the exciting stuff is. That's like the exciting part of the conversation today. But yeah, I really wanted to first of all catch up with friends from Kuching and yeah, get to know about what they're doing, and hopefully that's what they're doing will also inspire myself and all our listeners today. So I think without further ado, it's time for a quick introduction for both of you. So I think it would be great if you guys just like super like chill kind of like introduction about where you guys are based at right now, which is London. Great, okay. And then a little bit about what you do for a living today right now, and also like maybe just where are you specific. Okay, I just said that you guys are from Kuching. Okay, so yeah, maybe just the for a living, and then how long have you been overseas? Yeah, so okay, go for it, go for it. So yeah, Nadia and Zach, yes. So whoever wants to go first is totally fine, I think.
You wanna go first?
Sure.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, I'm Zach. I am currently working as a chief of staff at a climate fintech startup here in London, which is based off Chancery Lane, so nice and central. We're a team of 11, and we're building a suite of models, analytics, data, and a platform primarily to quantify the impacts of the climate transition on company cash flows. The idea is that whether or not we reach net zero by 2050, there will be a set of adaptation and mitigation methods that we will have to face in terms of policy, regulation, and technology responses, which will affect end market demand and hence revenue, costs, and capital expenditure of the companies in question. So really, our thesis is that climate risk is financial risk, and we're enabling investors to understand exactly how it propagates throughout the macroeconomy.
Nice, nice. That's a very concise summary of what you do. Yeah, because I think this field is actually quite like how to say it, quite a complex field, right? Financial modelings and whatnot, right? But I think you describe it just very nicely and concise. What about you, Nadia? Like,
Hi, I'm Nadia. I'm a legal assistant at a trade union. So what we do is we support any employee in the workplace, but more specifically, I help give our members legal advice. So that's what I do. I'm a legal assistant. I guess I also write books on the side. So
you do, yeah. What is your recent book? Sorry for people to, yeah. Although I know what the recent book is, obviously. Oh, you're gonna get the book. Nice. The cats we meet. Okay, for people who cannot see this, the cats we meet along the way. It's a children's book, right?
Yeah. It's young adult children. Yeah, I think it kind of children's young adult along those lines. I think.
But equally applicable for anyone in any age group, as many reviews have said.
Okay, nice. Yeah. And then also you you recently won quite a couple of awards for that. Like, what's one of your favorite awards that you felt like was a great achievement for me as a writer at this stage of my life?
I
you're going to get the
I only won one award. I was nominated for a few. I won one.
Yes, the Waterstones Children Book Prize 2023.
Yes,
Waterstones Waterstones is a those one of those like bookshop franchise, right? Yeah.
yes, Waterstones is
I think the largest bookstore chain in the UK.
one of
One of the largest, yeah.
Okay, cool. Quick question to both of you. How'd you guys ended up in London? Like, you guys just like, how'd you guys end up here?
well,
Well, so both from Kuching.
yeah.
Yes, Kuching, yay. Okay.
Yeah.
Ooh.
We did not come to the UK by sampan, as
Well, as many people believe,
because we do have cities and roads in Kuching, etc.
even cars.
Even cars, yeah. Like,
Yeah.
we both came to the UK 5 years ago for our undergraduate studies.
Mhm.
I went to Cambridge to do a degree in English, and Nadia did law.
In King's College London, and we after our degrees we just decided to apply for jobs here and try to I try to, what's the word,
Eke out a
Plan your lives.
out a living, yes, here.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's right.
city.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think in terms of like finding jobs and all that, I think London, at least in the UK, London is probably the most, viable option, right? I guess like for like in the US, you have like a couple of big cities, so you have a couple of options, right?
Mhm.
But I think for UK, it's like mostly London, right? Do you think so? Like, or
You'd be surprised, actually. So there are a lot of opportunities, but it's also the most saturated city,
right?
and the cost of living is really high. So I mean, I think it's actually equally viable to head to some of the other big cities like Birmingham, Manchester, or even Leicester, for
Right.
example.
Mm.
Because and then obviously like Edinburgh, because there are companies which have either based there or have significant offices there, and the cost of living is significantly cheaper as well.
Yeah.
Which is great if you're a fresh grad starting out their career.
Sense. Yeah. I think generally at least the way I saw it, like, but I only been here for 1 year. I always thought that, London was the best, especially I think if you're in finance, maybe London would obviously be but maybe other industries, other cities might work. But it's okay. Let's not talk too much about London because we have other people. We have spoken about London throughout this podcast before. But I'm more interested in you guys. Why choose to study overseas, right? Because I think in Kuching, right, at least in my opinion, lah, right. So I'm kind of like a few batches in between both of you, right? Like I think that's what our age gap are, I think. Okay, but anyways, I felt like a lot of people in Kuching, at least my classmates, studying overseas is not necessarily a very popular option, right? I think most people would go for like maybe matriculation, Form 6, right? So what inspires you guys to want to pursue an education overseas? Anybody can go first, as always.
Um, well, a big reason, maybe not the entire reason, but a big reason is that I think there are quite a few opportunities in the legal field in London.
Mhm.
I had also I've always wanted to write. So I think I also really like London as a place in which to begin writing and try to find opportunities in writing as well, because there's a huge
Market?
yes out there as
Okay.
well. So yeah, I think those were two big considerations.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, we in terms of why I decided, I feel like doing a degree in English only really makes sense to do it in the UK. Um,
Right.
so my degree was literature focused, and like Nadia was saying, I guess the heritage of literature in English
Mm.
is very rich in the UK, and as well as the study of it, right? So it was difficult, I think, to or it would have been more difficult in Malaysia, and this leads into the sort of career opportunities bit to, I suppose, start a career in anything other than maybe teaching with an English degree as well. Where in the UK it's far more flexible, and the requirements are really just like all the adjacent like critical thinking, etc. Depending on the job that you're applying for. So it's quite rare actually that you see people studying towards like a vocational degree and then actually only doing that field or profession afterwards.
Right. No, I think that's very true, right? I think in Malaysia there's more of like if you do a degree in engineering, most people the career paths that would open up to you more frequently than others would be something in engineering. So English, it could be, teaching or lecturing or whatnot, right? And I also agree that, in terms of being a writer, and because I think in Malaysia the kesenian part of our industry is not the most like, develop that robust yet, or that, that popular as some other industries that I feel there's a lot of focus in Malaysia right now. But actually, it's very interesting because I think both of you studied something that is not related to what you are, or what you really want to do, or want a prize for, right? Because like Zach, you study English, but you're in like finance and climate change, right? And Nadia, you did like law, but then you ended up being a writer, right? But you're still doing some legal. Your day job is in law, but of course, I think your side hustle and the dream is to be a writer, right? So maybe I think it's really interesting to know how you guys made that decision, or like I think the more like obvious change is like Zach, right? Like English to like finance, or right?
Yes. But I guess just to quickly add to the point, there definitely is a very burgeoning art scene in Malaysia, and it's continuing to thrive and grow. I guess specifically for us, like if my interests were in like Chinese literature or Malay literature, then I would definitely it doesn't make sense to move out of Malaysia. English literature, as a friend of mine very kindly put it when I was calling him one day and complaining about my degree, he was like, "Dude, you're studying English at the place that writes the dictionary, so that's great." But that was a big, I guess, like influence on why I decided to come here. And then in terms of the switch, well, people always ask me, like, why do you study English? Why didn't you go and do like medicine or engineering or law or something?
All the famous Asian
All the
careers.
famous Asian careers. In A levels, for example, I did literature and English, but then also maths, chemistry, and biology. So that was definitely a strain of like trying to keep my options open and potentially going into the STEM field afterwards as well. I guess the short answer is I did English because I really like English. I love reading books. I like writing about books. I like reading about writing about books. And it was just, I think, it seemed like such a great opportunity to come and really think deeply about things that you perhaps don't really have the opportunity to place a lot of emphasis on elsewhere. So my entire degree was reading poetry and short stories and novels and a lot of critical writing around those themes as well. Some of my peers did specializations in Old English, which is close to Germanic, for example, or they look very specifically into like the social linguistics of the language and how it relates to other literatures globally.
Okay.
So it was super exciting, and people always talk about this something called the Cambridge bubble, where you're just like protected, sheltered from the rest of the world, and you can just focus on very niche things. And I definitely felt that. And like for those 3 years, I think that was it was an experience, being able to basically spend my whole day thinking about writing and about meaning, and how cultures process stories, which are fundamental to how we communicate, with some of the world-leading academics in the field, which was very humbling, and also a lot of, it was sad sometimes when my essays would come back marked in red.
Oh, okay.
It was a fun experience. And then in terms of why I switched, I guess I never really I never committed entirely to a degree or to a profession in literature or associated fields. Like, definitely, if you ask me now what my sort of dream job is, I would still say it's probably going to be theater. I love uh,
Okay. You want to be an actor? You obviously want to be an
live stage actor
stage
specifically.
actor. Okay, all right, sorry. Yeah, stage actor. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, so I was involved in a couple of productions in uni, but then COVID hit, and then a couple more never materialized, which was a bit sad. And then towards the end, like sort of concurrent to my trying to wrap up my dissertation and applying for jobs, I also so there's this thing called the Marlowe Showcase, I think it's called, but essentially like um, it's like a bunch of critics and recruiters and art directors for various theaters across the UK come, and then they see like a bunch of monologues that are put on by various students who are about to graduate from Cambridge. And I was like, okay, I'm going to give this a shot, and if I win, then I'll actually seriously consider
career as a
yeah. As you can probably guess, I didn't get it, unfortunately. So I was like, okay, maybe this is a sign from the broader universe, and I should focus on trying to, make a
okay.
Elsewhere.
Okay.
And then, well, I realized I've been banging on for a while, and I'm very keen.
Okay.
But
Yeah. Okay.
the,
Yeah. I think if you want to finish, you can go ahead. No worries. But we can deep a little bit deeper into the specifics of the career that you have in a bit, right? But yeah, maybe let's shift to Nadia a bit, right? So, yeah, you know what inspired writing, because you've always wanted to write a book and everything, but then you chose to study law. They're a little bit related because I know law has a lot of like writing essays and whatnot and analyzing those specific acts and how they can be applied, I think. But yeah, what inspired that sudden that courage to I'm just gonna go write that book, right? I think, yeah. How did it come about? Yeah.
Yeah, I think ever since I was a child, I've always wanted to write a book. It's yeah, my biggest dream was to write a book. I'm not sure what to do now that my biggest dream is achieved.
Right.
But
write another book.
yeah, that's the that's the dream now. But yeah, I mean that was always the plan, and there's obviously, like Zach said, a really a growing and really flourishing literary scene in Malaysia. It's become even more evident now, but 5-6 years ago, I didn't really know where to start looking for that in Malaysia. And I think in the UK, it seemed a bit more clear cut, like the things I could apply to and the things I could do. I could do to start writing a book here. But yeah, just I think coming to the UK was mainly the law thing, really, because I think at the time I was of the opinion that there were quite a few career opportunities in terms of law as well, and ways to make it in areas of law that I really liked. Like family law, employment law, human rights law, things like that. And I still want to try to make a difference in areas of law like that, and that was my main thing. But also just a purely, when I thought about it then, just a purely pipe dream was to write a book, something I'd always wanted to do. So it wasn't really a switch per se, it was just something that I was able to achieve while I was here. So I was able to pursue law, which I'm very lucky to get to do. And in an area of law right now, I'm in employment law, which I think really helps people. And I was also able to write a book here. I was able to enter a competition. It's called the Guppy Open Submissions Competition, and Guppy Books is the publisher who eventually published my book. I entered it because they advertised online a competition that you didn't need a literary agent to be able to join. And at that point, I did not have a literary agent, so I was able to just send my manuscript, and by a strange stroke of luck, it won the competition.
Oh,
and
okay. Nice.
I got a publishing contract, which was very cool.
Oh, okay. Are they continuing to want to work with you on different books, or was that like a one-off contract thing, or like just curious? Yeah.
I I hope. I mean, they're going to work with me on my second book. So that will be cool, and I hope they continue to work with me in the future because I really love working with them. I work with my editor Bella, and she's really lovely. I really love working with her. I think I hope I have a very good relationship with her where we're able to talk about the things I'm writing, and she tells me very honestly if they're working out or not. So I think it's an important relation to have, and because Guppy is a smaller publisher, she's able to give me that time and attention and real honesty that I think is important for a writer.
Mm-hmm. That's really amazing. Is this the Guppy Publishing? I hope I'm saying it right. Do they like help you to also like distribute your books across different countries and whatnot, or is it mostly focused just this is actually my personal curiosity already. Like, is it a lot of focus on the UK? Like when
Yeah, so I think I might be wrong on the specifics of it, but I think they're with Michael O'Mara, which is a company that helps with the distribution of rights of the books. So
rights then get basically purchased by various other publishers.
Oh, are those other? Oh, okay. At the End of the World. Oh, wait, that's the
American version of Cats, and this is the French version.
Oh, wait, they changed the name of the book even. That's really interesting. I mean,
Yeah,
the American version is like not The Cats We Meet Along, but At the End of the World.
Yeah, it's like an interesting like
rebrand.
And then you can see that the publishers are different from the UK version.
Oh, okay.
But the book itself is obviously the same, barring some minor changes. Like in the French version, it's obviously French.
Okay. That's really interesting. Okay. Wow. Okay. So, and I know that recently you were also promoting the book in Malaysia, right? Like you said, it was in MPH. Was it in MPH? I think it's MPH.
I think it was really cool for it to be in MPH because, you know, as kids, we bought all our books from MPH.
Yeah.
In Kuching, yes. In the spring.
MPH, right? Yeah. So that was the only MPH, right?
That was really cool. Last time I went back, it was on like the 50% discounts.
No.
Shelves. So I was like, okay, that's fine.
And here, you know, who knows? We can help you. We can kind of try to like promote the book here, right? Which begs me my next question before I go back to Zach, right? So maybe a little bit about the book, right? So The Cats We Meet Along the Way. What is it about? Yeah, just for the sake of our listeners, because I kind of know what the synopsis is, but maybe you can remind us. You know, so what is it about? Yeah.
I'm very bad at this part. It's about an 18-year-old girl named Aisha, and she and her mother have been told that the end of the world is coming in a few months. So they go on a road trip across Malaysia to find Aisha's estranged sister, June, and to hopefully reconcile before the end of the world comes. And on the road trip, they take Aisha's boyfriend and Aisha's boyfriend's parents and a stray cat named Fleabag. So, yeah, I think I think it's mainly about, you know, internal processes within the main characters as they come to terms with their own mortality and grieving and loss and the end of the world. But it's also about the importance of family and friendship and bonds and love and what really matters to us when we're faced with such awful things like that.
Yeah, yeah. And so, what are the cats? So the cats are the people you meet along the way, or is it just about different versions of Fleabag, the cat that the
So, perhaps inputting my opinion here as an English graduate.
Okay, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
the cats the cats are an extended metaphor. They're not, there is only like physically one cat in the novel, unfortunately.
That's right.
So
Okay.
That's a big complaint from people.
It is a big complaint.
They're like,
People
where are the cats?
I expected more cats. There's only one, and he's scruffy looking. Has only one ear, and like he's like orange colored.
It's not his fault.
It's not his fault.
Yeah.
But the cats, I guess, they're like, cats are creatures of chance and providence, and they're very mystical. People always think that dogs are the best, and dogs are great. Don't get us wrong, but cats are. There's just a certain like magic and mystique about them. They're quiet, but they're also really affectionate, and they're very independent and free willed. And I guess in this book, Fleabag obviously doesn't really understand what's going on around him, but he is still there for Aisha and for her family and her loved ones when they need him the most, and when they need his comfort and just the silly distraction that a small little creature who is only interested in eating, sleeping, and purring really provides. So I guess, it depends on you, really. There's no wrong answer here. The way I read it is that, Fleabag represents, or the cats, the metaphorical cats are a figurative representation of different periods in one's life, and just the chance encounters and just networks of support and love that one builds as they go through life.
Actually, now that you put it that way, that's quite an interesting metaphor that's used here. I'm curious, how did people take it? Just because like when we of course when we see the title of the book, we expect the cats, right? But do most of your readers, like after they read the book, they feel like, oh, the cats, did they tell you what they saw the cats as? I think that would be quite a curious question. Like Zach, you saw it as like a metaphor for comfort and companionship in tough times, right? But did any of your readers have any other thoughts about who the cats were? Besides being Fleabag, so.
There've been many complaints about there not being actual physical cats, like we said, but I think, I have
mostly from like 5-year-olds.
Okay. But there have been, a couple of interesting interpretations of the title. I have heard quite a few, like Zach, talk about how it's an extended metaphor about companionship and extended networks we build. But there have also been people who have asked me if it's about, taking. I think it was something like whether taking care of this one cat, this one stray cat, was just a metaphor of what is actually important in life, being able to take a look at this flea-ridden, tiny,
kind of flea-ridden. Okay.
Flea-ridden, grumpy, like little creature, and being able to shelter it and take it in and love it, even though it's not on the face of it something you might immediately love. And it's because the themes of the book are about finding it sometimes hard to love the people around, finding it hard to, I suppose, actively love the people who well, you love the people, your family and your friends, but sometimes, circumstances make it hard to love them the way they should be loved, to be there for them the way you should be. So yeah, I think they were asking if the cat is a representation of it, which I think is a very good interpretation as well.
Okay, yeah, I'm seeing that possible interpretation as well of it. Now I'm very curious. Now I really want to read the book as well. Okay, yeah, that's great. Okay, I'm curious actually, what inspired this story, right? Did you take inspiration from your own life or something you saw, right? That because I think it has a lot of very deep meaning, right? So it must have come from somewhere. Like, where do you think it came from?
We were in lockdown, so it came from that. It was a bit scary for a while, as everyone knows. I wasn't sure if I could fly back to see my family and my sister, who I love very much, even though she is like a flea-ridden creature.
All right.
As you know, Adria.
She's a great person to me, but
That's very diplomatic.
Different, like the way I see my older sister looks at me probably is flea-ridden as well, right? So
yeah,
but I get it. Yeah.
But I love her very much, and I didn't know when I would see her again. And I suppose the book was born of that panic, but and it felt like a very end of the world thing, COVID, for a while, because we were reading a lot of news very early on about this very strange, deadly virus, and I guess I really just it was a doom spiral sort of thing, like what would happen if it was actually the end of the world and I couldn't see my family again. So it was born from that, but also there's a lot of memories there in the book that I've written down that are also based on different experiences of grief and loss, but also really beautiful experiences with family in my life.
Okay, wow, that's beautiful, amazing. Now you've inspired me to read the book as well, and hopefully people listening to this podcast will also go to MPH right now and go look for that book, right? So
they'll be in the 50% off pile.
Yeah, 50% off. Yeah. Oh my God, why not, right? Yeah. Okay. That's really amazing, right? I think now maybe want to shift a little bit to Zach, because I think like we've been waiting to hear the answer about why finance, right? Because I feel like there's like at that point in time, if I were you, right? Let's say I didn't make it to this competition to become a stage actor. Maybe I could have considered writing a book. Could have considered something more artistic as well. But you just jump straight into something mathematical, financy, climate change. Like, how did that come about? Really, like the thought process, like, or what did you even see that? Yeah.
To be clear, I'm still keeping my options open.
All right, cool.
If one day I get headhunted by a talent scout, I'm not gonna say no.
Like a great actor. King Lear.
I was not Lear, but I was Gloucester, and I got my eyes burned out. But I mean I guess it was. So this wasn't my first job after I left uni. I actually, in the 2 years since I finished my degree, I've actually held 3 separate jobs. But technically only 2, because I didn't sign the contract for the first one.
Okay, that's all right. Yeah.
But it was a process of experimentation, basically. I mean, I definitely went through a lot of experimentation and interviews and just looking to see what was out there, because I didn't really think about my career path during my degree itself. I didn't, go on summer internships or spring internships like a lot of my peers did. So I was really, like approaching the job market with very naive, fresh eyes. So the first, like, I guess, real job that I had after uni was one in headhunting for quantitative finance. So essentially, you're thinking about people with maths and statistics PhDs, or like computer science and stuff, and who are using systematic algorithms to trade on like different asset markets, basically, for hedge funds, right? So that was interesting, and it was a whole new world. Like that was really my introduction to the idea of the market and just economic fundamentals.
Mhm.
Um, and but I did feel like like helping rich people get richer wasn't exactly what I wanted to do with my life.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
So then uh, I was, I was still in quite close contact with this old professor, like a Professor Slughorn type character in
Mm-hmm.
Cambridge, who I met through my extracurricular activities.
Right.
He's a really lovely man, and was. I was over at his place for lunch one day, and I was telling him about my job, and he said, "Hey, you should speak to this guy called Amos, who also did English, also went to the college we went to at Cambridge, Corpus, but was 6 years your senior. So he's like super interesting and will be able to give you a bunch of advice on like his career path, right?" So I said, "Sure, why not?" I met with Amos, and he told me all about his startup. At the time, it was called Dovetail Finance,
Right.
and it genuinely sounded really interesting. And like his own career path after uni, he did something called the Schwartzman Scholarship Program. So this is under it was established by the CEO and founder of Blackstone, the private equity firm. And it's essentially like a cultural exchange master's program with universities in China and the UK and US. So like, Amos went to Tsinghua University. He did like
Oh, cool.
I think international relations, and like the whole point of it is to build like a network of professionals globally, right? So it's towards people in like below the sort of below 30 group. And then after Schwartzman, he did a couple of things around financial editing. He reported on money laundering and terror financing. But yeah, and then he decided to leave and start Dovetail. And throughout the course of the conversation, it was super interesting, but it also became clear that he was looking for, like there was this gap in the organization because they had software engineers and they had economists working on the models and the modeling. But on the commercial side of things, it was basically only Amos. So when you're talking about
On selling what they were doing. Okay.
selling what they were doing and fundraising with venture capitalists and just handling all like marketing and the way we present ourselves, he was the one doing that and like setting the strategy, I guess, for the business. And then it was sort of like a light bulb moment when both of us was like, "Hey, maybe we could do something for each other." And yeah, like I invited me to apply for the job of what's called a founder associate. That's an increasingly popular role in startups in especially the EU and the UK. But
what do you do as a founder associate?
To associate to the founder, you're an intentional generalist. You do basically anything that needs to get done to take stuff off of the founder's plate. If you're being generous, you might call it like a mini CEO, running around doing fundraising and taking client calls and everything from HR to admin to ops to sales to business development to market sizing. If you're not being generous, you might call it like a glorified executive assistant position.
Like what you just said there. Okay. All right.
As a founder associate, I still had to go through like interview processes and so on. I think they told me later on that they interviewed something like 80 people for the role, but I was the only one that decided to proceed with. And that's in no way like talking up my own capabilities or anything. It's just, it speaks to how closely you're working with the founder, and you might be very qualified, but at the end of the day, if you don't just like get along with the founder, it can be very tough because you're in such close proximity with them all the time. Their concerns become your concerns, and you essentially become like, an advisor, a sounding board, a nanny, executive assistant to this person. It definitely helped that Amos and I got along very well, and have very similar backgrounds. But yeah, like what did we do? Like I remember the day of our first commercial launch. In the morning, I was all dressed up, and we were at BlackRock's offices speaking to their private credit team. Like on the 69th floor or something. Like great views of the city. And then in the afternoon, I was running around like carting like used wine glasses for our launch party, and my bag and doing that sort of manual labor. So it was definitely a lot of things all the time, wearing different hats, and that's exactly what I think I wanted in my career. Like just doing something that gave me a lot of exposure to different things. Now as a chief of staff, it's basically the same things that I was doing as a founder associate plus plus. So yeah, being able to drive forward company's priorities,
Yeah.
how I see fit basically. And I've gotten a chance to do a bit of like research into financial modeling and economic modeling as relates to nature, for example, like how do you quantify biodiversity in company cash flows? And I think I've got a pretty good methodology actually. And doing some of that desk side research for some of the analysis that we're producing for clients. So it's wide, varied, and yeah, it's a cool gig.
Yeah, I think it totally makes a lot of sense, right? Because I think experimentation is all about gaining exposure to different types of work and industries and people, right? Before you realize there's a certain path that you would still like to go back to or maybe venture more into, right? And I think that's the same for me, right? Like I think there was when I first graduated, I also decided like most people just to go do a consulting job with one of those big professional service companies because they're the ones who will kind of like give you exposure to do all kinds of different things that you did as well, right? And then only now did I realize that maybe big corporates is not really for me, right? So yeah, I think that totally makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much for like sharing. I think a lot of people will find it really helpful, especially if they're like trying to explore what they want to do out of university or even at some point in their careers, right? So I think we've arrived. Thanks so much both of you for sharing. Like, so I learned a lot about the art scene and a little bit about jumping from arts into doing a little bit of financial modeling stuff. Well, that's interesting. So maybe last, wanted to ask you both of you a last question, right? Like, how do you think like your experiences overseas has shaped your perspective on things either on Malaysia or on the art scene, or on your own career and yourself, right? Like it's a little bit of a deep question, but you guys can throw out whatever ideas you have or reflections that you have.
I think, just being here, I've learned a lot about the arts. I mean, specifically the publishing scene here.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's hard though to compare it to Malaysia when I don't
know too much, right?
Know too much about the publishing scene in Malaysia. I think I'm not sure it's shaped specifically any of my views on the art scene or the legal scene. I think exposure, like you said, exposure to different fields in different areas is always good and always broadens your mind. I think it would be hard to make any value judgment, especially since we left so early after A levels, when it was, we didn't have much exposure to different scenes then in terms of being people in the workforce.
Yep.
I'm sorry, that's a non-answer, but
no, it's okay. I think that's all right. Yeah, like sometimes I think we like to answer this question also. I think you need a little bit more long-term or few years exposure in Malaysia itself as well. But nonetheless, yeah, it's thank you for the very honest opinion. Yeah, I was totally fine. What about you, Zach? Like, would you have any thoughts or
Yeah. I guess to contextualize, first of all, the UK is not perfect, obviously. It's just purely in terms of like you could be walking down the street and people are just like shout racist things at you, for example. Thankfully, it doesn't happen very often, but it has happened, which isn't great. Or you hear about like Uber drivers ferrying around passengers who got stabbed by in like a turf war or something. But that being said, I think from just conversations I've had with my family and a lot of my friends who are based in Malaysia, seems like at least in London and at least in the sort of spheres that we occupy professionally, there's maybe a greater emphasis on the individual in the UK, and on basically the contributions that anybody could make, regardless of experience or connections or qualifications. There's a definite emphasis on so-called EDI, we call diversity, equity, diversity, and inclusivity, and just trying to make sure that people who come from traditionally underrepresented backgrounds have a chance to do meaningful work. And I think that's important, right? And what it does is it doesn't stifle creativity and this process of just economic or social or cultural growth, I think. So, for example, just the vibrancy of the startup scene here really speaks to that. People feel like they're empowered to go and start a firm and like go out and pitch themselves and their team and their idea on really nothing else but the qualities of their team and themselves and their idea to go and rake in like millions of pounds to go and build this thing, right? And definitely Malaysia and Singapore, like the ASEAN region, like has a VC scene as well. But I think it's just so much more, I guess, opportunity and emphasis is placed in places like the UK to encourage people to pursue unorthodox alternative careers after uni and not just feel like they have to commit themselves to a large corporate and work in that for the rest of their lives.
Right. I think that makes a lot of sense, right? I think there's still a lot of, at least from my perspective, there's a stigma, right? If you study engineering, then suddenly you started writing a book all of a sudden, right? Then that would raise eyebrows, right? From your family, from your friends, a little bit. But of course, they won't stop you, but it would just raise eyebrows, that kind of thing. And yeah.
Yeah, I guess, like my final thought on it is that people aren't what they studied or what they do for a living.
Definitely. Yep. Definitely, 100%. I mean, look at what the number of things that I've done in my life that's unrelated to what I studied at all, right? So, and I'm pretty sure it's the same for both of you as well. I think with that, thank you so much to both of you for spending like Saturday morning talking to me and sharing a little bit about when the cats we meet along the way. I think we should do a final promotion for the book, like the cats we meet along the way. It's still in MPH, right? I hope. Yeah, I think that.
Yeah, maybe it's on the 70%.
Yeah. MPH, you guys at Mid Valley or at like TRX Exchange, the new
Kinokuniya.
Or just
Kinokuniya as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing, guys. KLCT Kinokuniya, go there. It's probably on 50% off. Don't miss out on it. And as you can hear from our conversation just now, right, it's a book that will really, bring a lot of reflections about the relationships and the people that you have in your life around you, right? And I think with that, I just want to thank everybody for listening in as well. And hopefully we'll see you guys again on episode 10. And if you really love what we talk about here, don't forget to follow us on Instagram, like or subscribe, so you can keep updated, right? I'm not aiming for any like sponsorship or nothing, okay? There's no monetization going on here. It's just me like just trying to promote all the guests that I speak to, because I think Malaysians everywhere are just super talented and great at whatever they do, right? And everybody has a very unique story to share. So that's really the goal. So thank you so much to both of you, Nadia and Zach, and also to our listeners. We'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Adria. This is amazing to be able to speak.